You might hear an echo in the room because there's not many people, but that's okay. It's quality, not quantity, you know what I'm saying? Okay, we'll call to order the Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue 2023-2024 Budget Committee meeting. So Dina, would you do a roll call, please?
Yes, Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue Directors, Tim Mendolia.
Here. Alan
Burns. Jim Polisi.
Here.
Sam Spade.
Here.
Lori Heppel. Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue Budget Committee, Stephanie Restrepo.
Here.
Aaron Houston.
Here.
Tim Kelly.
Okay, we do have a quorum of 5. So thank you very much for being here, or we couldn't do that. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about the Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue and Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority budgets. And I will maybe like water before we start. Water, anybody?
Oh, yeah, I can take one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Very good.
You got water?
Yeah, I'll come over and get it. There's a lot.
Ah, come on. Come on, you know, it's worried for me.
You see my screen, Dan?
Yes, I can.
Thanks, guy.
There we go. Oh. Again, this is the Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue and Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority Budget Committee meeting. And again, thank you so much for coming here. It's been tough to get citizens to be on this committee, so absolutely, you guys are really helping us a lot. So, see that screen there, I'll sort of stay out of the way. So you're gonna hear a lot about Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority. I'm gonna explain why that's important in the direction we're going. This is the Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue Budget Committee meeting, but it's tied in integrally with the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority. So we'll talk about it. So the budget process. And this is mandated by the state, so we're following state requirements. So the budget officer, which is me, I propose the budget to the budget committee. You, as the budget committee, you hear public comments. Dina, do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
So we have no public comments. You have the ability to review and modify the budget, and that's important. So if you think that some numbers don't make sense, you have the absolute right to say, we want to see that number change. And then as a committee, so citizens and director, you can vote and then majority wins on the budget. So the budget committee approves the budget and then you approve the tax rates. So what we charge in property tax and what comes back to us. That's the first step of the budget process. Next, the board of directors, which are that side of the table, they're the ones that actually adopt the budget. So at a board meeting coming up in May, they'll take this budget that you guys have approved and then they adopt it. They have the right to change the budget up to 10%. And if they change it more than that, then we have to have a public hearing. Rarely does it change much. I mean, they're right there. They're part of this committee. So any changes are going to be pretty much at this time. But they have the right to do that if they should choose. That's never happened since I've been here. It would just be rare. So you receive the budget document, and that's you got it right there on your computer. That's the budget message. And pretty much we can go through that budget message line by line, but my whole talk really is about the budget message. So I'm just going to go through these slides. You'll hear that. But our first step, okay, and the budget message explains our budget document, and describes our financial policies, any important features of the budget document, major changes, and I'll go over some major changes, and then any changes in financial policy. There haven't been any changes in our financial policy. So what's different for fiscal year 24? So we consolidated operations into Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority. What that means is that all personnel went into the authority. So Western Lane Ambulance District and Southwest Valley Fire and Rescue still exist as a district. But they're saying, well, FIA, we want you to provide ALS transport. Well, FIA, we want you to provide fire prevention, fire suppression services. And that's their right, as a taxing authority, they are ultimately responsible for EMS and fire. So that's what they did. This year, what we're proposing for the first time is, since SVFR and Western Lane Ambulance have no employees, then personnel services costs should be in well-being. Materials and services costs should be in well-being. The only thing that's remaining in the parent districts are capital costs. And again, that's by state law, so capital stays with the parent district. Down the road, 2 years from now, we're gonna go to the voters and say, we'd like to get rid of Western Lane Ambulance District, we'd like to get rid of Sisseton Valley Fire and Rescue, and just have Western Lane Fire and EMS. Not gonna change anything, just changing the name, but then it gets rid of those two entities and we just have one. It's gonna be so much simpler. Yeah, and I'll show how that changes operationally. Well, it doesn't, but this, yeah. So that's the big one, is consolidating, operation personnel into well-being. So our first step as a budget committee is to nominate a budget committee chairperson. That chairperson can run the rest of the meeting, or they can say, Chief, would you run the meeting? It's either way is fine for me, but we do have to have a committee chairperson.
I nominate Stephanie.
Yeah,
That's the way I was gonna nominate you.
there's nomination. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. So all in favor of Stephanie? Aye. Thank you very
I
much.
love it.
For that, you get a challenge point. Yeah. So I'll be happy to run it. At the end, you want to say, is there a motion to approve the budget? It's all up there, so. Maybe perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, we can put an X on that one. So our first step then, or second step, would be to approve the minutes from last year's meeting. So we need a motion to approve the April 21st, 2022 Budget Committee meeting minutes.
I would note one adjustment to being earlier. So with that change,
What's your change?
it was just in the actual approval from the meeting before, it said that I had confused myself, but on this meeting for the 2022 meeting, I did not.
Okay,
So it was just that minor change.
okay. Dina, did you get that?
I did. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. So with those changes, is there, who the motion to approve the minutes with those changes? For Jim Polisi, is there a second? Stephanie, seconds? All in favor of approving the motion or approving the minutes with the changes? Say aye. Awesome. So that's approved. Do you get all that, Dina?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
And like I said, there are no public comments. Okay. So now a little background. We're gonna get into the budgets really quick, I promise. So before, and this is, I just put fiscal year 22, but it's, you know, 22 and earlier, we had three separate lines. We had a budget for Western Lane Ambulance District, who had 15 people. So they had personnel wages and benefits. They had materials and service costs, so medical supplies, fuel, electricity for the station, and then capital buying ambulances or fixing the building. SVFR had a similar budget. They had fewer people, 10 people. But they had personnel costs, materials and service costs. So they're paying for much more expensive fire engines, many more stations, 8 stations versus just the one on the ambulance side, and then the capital, of course. And then Wolfia had a budget with their 6 employees, and then materials and services, no capital in Wolfia, it was all on the parent organization. So that's how we did it before. And then Wolfia, the cost for Wolfia was split evenly between the ambulance district and SVFR. So they said 50-50. So Wolfia was formed to provide administrative oversight to the 2 agencies. So I actually started out, I was hired by Sisseton Valley Fire and Rescue. And then 6 months later, I became a Wolfia employee, Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority employee. And then all the admin staff joined me in Wolfia. So that's how it was. And then the current year, how we did, we still have 3 budgets. But on July 1st, 2023, we moved everybody to Wolfia. So Western Lane Ambulance District had no employees. In the budget, they had personnel service costs, they had wages and benefit costs, and the same for SVFR, they had wages and benefit costs. But all the employees were in Wellfia. And then Wellfia didn't have just 9 employees, they had 34 employees, essentially. But it made it look like we had 3 separate budgets and 3 different agencies working together. It was fine. This was done on purpose to try and make sure that it's transparent to the citizens of what we're doing. And you can never say that's wrong. Now, the reason we want to change that is that the lines between the agencies are not just blurred anymore, they don't exist. So fiscal year 22, we had 15 employees that only did ambulance, they only rode on an ambulance. We had 9 that only rode on a fire truck. And then this year, we've been cross-training our people, so we've got 7 that can ride on a fire engine or an ambulance. And when you're moving people around, who pays that salary? So we just said, well, you're being paid by the fire department, you'll continue to be paid by the fire department, although you're working on an ambulance. Next year, we expect that we'll have, out of the 24 line employees, 20 will be able to go either way. And then, of those 4 that are EMS only, all 4 are training to be firefighters. So it could be this next year or year after, but we can move people anywhere we want. So at that point, keeping 15 pseudo employees being paid here and 9 here, it makes no more sense anymore. Unless you have a time card to get on an engine, you hit your time card, get on ambulance, hit it again, and we don't want to do that. So for fiscal year 24, we'll have 3 budgets, but 2 of them will be much smaller. Western Line Ambulance District and SVFR have no employees, so they have no materials and services. They have no personnel services costs. They still have capital, like I said, capital has to remain with the parent employee or parent agency, and then the 34 employees in Wellfia. And so you're going to be seeing part of the SVFR budget, parts of the budget that actually have numbers there. So we'll talk about tax dollars coming in, where the tax dollars are going. But then we'll be looking at the Wellfia budget. I guess slide coming up, it'll show the breakdown a little bit easier. So real briefly, I just want to say or describe, is there going to be an operational difference when we do that? And really there is. So before, if you lived in our ambulance service area, you received service from Western Line Ambulance District. So if you lived in Florence, you lived in Mapleton, you lived in Swiss Home Deadwood, our ambulance service area is 564 square miles. So it's big. We go milepost 29 and 126, so it's huge. Now fire is much smaller. It's about 20% of our ambulance service area. So we service Florence and then about another 90 square miles around Florence. So much smaller than ambulance service district. So if you got service if you lived in the Florence area, you got service from Central Valley Fire and Rescue. But if you lived in Mapleton Fire Department did fire prevention, fire suppression. And then if you lived in Swiss Home Deadwood, then the Swiss Home Deadwood Department was your fire department. So after we moved everybody to Wellfia, what's the difference? Well, pretty much it's just the name. So EMS is provided by Western Line Fire and US Authority in Florence, the Swiss Home Deadwood. Fire in the Florence area by Western Line Fire and EMS Authority, and then Mapleton and Swiss Home Deadwood still provide service to their community. So no operational difference at all, just what's on the side of the vehicle may look different. Same people providing the same service. So no operational difference. So in this meeting, you're going to review resources, that's our income for SVFR, Central Valley Fire and Rescue. You're going to look at capital expenses for the fire department. And then you're going to look at the Wellfia budget. So you, as a budget committee, you don't have the approval of the Wellfia budget, but we're giving you that authority. We're saying, we want you to look at the Wellfia budget. We want you to be happy as citizens, as directors with that budget. So you're going to look at that. So you're going to be looking at personnel services and materials and service expenses for the authority. Now, last week we had this same meeting, but it was for Western Line Ambulance District and their directors. They looked at the resources for Western Lane Ambulance District. For them, resources are property taxes as well as transport we charge for ambulance rides. And that's a significant part of their budget. They looked at capital expenses. And they looked at the WOPIA budget and they were okay with that. So the question goes, what, say you guys decide fire chief should be paid twice as much as he's getting paid now. You have the right to do that. I support that right. But we would have to go back to Western Lane Ambulance District people, say, are you okay with that? And if they said, no, we think it's 3 times a much better number, then we'd have to come back and get everybody. But they approved the budget as presented. But again, that's not saying that you can't say we want something different. That's fine. If there is a disagreement, then we have, additional meetings marked out. We're happy to do that. So here's our first, and then you're gonna see resources from South Valley Fire and Rescue, and then expenses are gonna be Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, but being paid by South Valley Fire and Rescue, Western Lane. So our first one is this is our networking capital. And we need that networking capital to start out the fiscal year because our revenue, our tax dollars come in November. Our fiscal year starts July 1. So how do we pay people from, July, August, September, October into November? So we have to have that buffer at the beginning, and that's our networking capital. And then there's nothing else on. I'm not going to go over every line, but if there's something you want me to talk about, I certainly can. Sam had a question about the casino. Casino as a tribal entity, they do not have to pay us anything. They are not legally obligated to pay us any amount of money for fire protection or ambulance service. They do that, and the amount they pay is what is your assessed value of your casino and all the land. If you were in our district, this is what you would pay, and they're very, very good about paying us back. So that's where we get the casino line. Conflag on line 8 there, that's a term used by the state conflagration. So if there's a major wildland fire or any kind of major call really, they'll call me up and say, hey, can you send us 4 firefighters and 2 fire trucks? I said, sure, I can do that. Then the state reimburses us for the cost of those vehicles, those people. Also reimburses us for backfilling those positions. So it's a little bit of a moneymaker for us. But if we're going to spend that money, we have to show that the income as well. So that's what that is. Okay. So total resources, that's adding all that up, it was 1.8 million. And then our property taxes, and you'll see too, Lane County and Douglas County. So the vast 99.9%, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's about 99. Of our property is in Lane County. We cover just a tiny bit of Douglas County. And that's at 4718, and just a few houses. Our district, our fire district goes to the Douglas County line, Douglas County line. And there's a few houses in Douglas County at the south end of Lane County that it's much quicker for us to get there. And so they're in our fire district. It's not a lot of homes, it's a couple homes, but they do pay us. So our total resources, so income, networking capital, what we had left over, any grants, the casino funds, $4,860,034. And you'll see that number again. So now we're talking about Western Lane Fire and EMS. So I will show a couple more slides about the fire department when we talk about capital, but now we're going to talk about the well-being. So from SVFR, we're transferring $3,784,713. Well, and if you look at that number, total resources before 4.8 million. The reason it's not all going there is capital expenses and things like that are staying with the district. And then getting from what's on the ambulance district 6.2 million for a total of $9.9 million. Come on. So why is Western Lane Ambulance District paying so much more? Well, they came in with more people, And that's where most of our costs are, personnel costs, so we're still providing EMS services, the same amount of services as before, same amount of fire services before, and this is what they pay before. So it sort of makes sense that Western Lane would be a little bit higher. So now we're going to show, part of the state requirement is that you show the last 3 years. So the last 3 years, well, FIA had very little as far as personnel expenses. It was all in SVFR, Western Lane Ambulance District. So what we've done is in these preceding years, we've added SVFR and Western Lane Ambulance District together. Unless it was like for my line, the first one, my position, I was in FIA, so it's not added from those. But when we talk about our line personnel, we added those. We have, captains over at Western Lane Ambulance District, captains here, it was just added together. So that's what you're seeing. So again, I'm not going to go through every line, but if there's anything that you have a question about, I'm going to go through some of the highlights, some of the big changes. So this is our line personnel. So we're captain on down to EMT intermediate, or full-time people. So you see for our lieutenants, and in the description, it says lieutenants, 3 FTE, 3 full-time employees. Now, what you can't do is look back and say, well, okay, we had 3 full-time employees in 2020, 2021, and we were only paying them $54,000. No, that's not. Going forward, this year, next year going forward, that is accurate, 3 FTEs or 8 FTEs. It may not have been accurate before. So what's that showing us in that 2020, 2021 year, we only had 1 lieutenant at that point. And that's what that person was getting paid. So going forward, and right now we have 1 lieutenant and 1 captain on each shift. Then they can be here, or they can be down at the ambulance station. Like I said, we move them around. So what else? Firefighter paramedic. So last year we only had 1 person we were classifying as a firefighter paramedic. Next year going forward, we're going to have 8. So we didn't add 7 firefighter paramedics. We took 7 that were already here that got the additional training. Now they're just in a different category. That's all. Because you see our single role paramedics just below that went from 710,000 to 270,000. So we're just moving people around. And part-time firefighter costs, and that's a variable for us. We try and support our full-time staff with not only volunteers, fire side, but we have a lot of part-time people. That helps us to staff additionally on days that we know might be a little bit busy, but without having to maintain that career staff all year round. So we have fully staffed with careers 8 people a day. Some days we may need 10, and then we would bring in part-time people to do that. So in years past, when we got really hit with COVID, we lost a lot of our part-time employees. And right now in the state of Oregon, very, very competitive. If you're a firefighter paramedic, you can get a job anywhere. And we're trying to keep our part-time people. I mean, we hire from our part-time pool almost always. Make it very attractive to work here, but it's very competitive. So, but we need those part-timers down the south. So it's a guess year to year. Right now, we're fully staffed with part-time people. So, and that represents being fully staffed. I hope we spend that much on part-time because it means that we have a lot of opportunities for them. Like I said, they're getting stolen away from us. And then one thing we tried to, that I wanted to do this year is we used to lump all our overtime just in one little pool. I'd like to break that out for training and then regular overtime would be if somebody's coming in, somebody's out sick, so we bring somebody in to come in and shift. That's an overtime shift. Versus training, they're coming in on their off day just to train. Then we should capture that separately. So that's why that on a new line. We haven't captured it before, so there is no history on that. So that was a wages. Now these are benefits. Some of the benefits
Question
there.
before the board. Right. Is all that weighted?
is all that.
Is it weighted, and you think that's the total cost of your employees? That is, this whole, so is it like health insurance?
That's the, we're, yeah,
Oh,
this has been out there, yeah, so that was just,
Before we vote.
yeah,
okay,
so that was just salaries.
got it.
And I will show a summary.
Thank you.
So, some of the big jumps are medical dental, it went up, didn't go up, well, it went up that much, but on a percentage basis, it was only 5%. We added a few people, so that's why our total cost has gone up. We were very fortunate, we had 2 years in a row, there was no increase. And so we knew that wasn't gonna last forever, so the last couple of years, we've seen some moderately high increases. So we pay, the district pay, the authority pays 95% of healthcare costs, the employee pays 5%. Which is generous, we came in, so in this year, so we have West Lane Ambulance District and SVFR employees. They are, both sets of employees are in the union, in a union, same union, but they have different contracts. So this year we said, and they're up for negotiation, let's have one contract. So here, the firefighters, they had 100% of their healthcare covered. Western Lane Ambulance was at 90%. So we said, let's go in the middle, 95%. So that's how we came up with that 95%. PERS pension, that's a big jump. And the reason that went up, and PERS is the Public Employees Retirement System. And the reason, so PERS has two classifications for employees, general service, and police and fire. Now, for whatever reason, they consider, obviously, here at the fire department, we're in the police and fire classification. Ambulance district members were considered in general service. And the thought was that police and fire, it's a stressful job. You can't work as long normally, so they should retire earlier with the same benefit as if they were general service. The argument that we would make is that ambulance people have just as much stress and things like that, but it's not our call, it's a legislature.
Who goes in and blend in building?
Well, that's true, but now, well, so, but, so that's another question, but, so general service, you can retire at age 65 with however many years you have in. You want full benefits, you retire at 58, you have to have at least 25 years. Now, if you're in police and fire, you can retire at 60, so 5 years earlier, essentially. If you want full benefits, 53 with 25 years. So full benefits, less years means you're gonna have to pay more. So the district has to pay more. And about, our cost now is about 30% of employees' wages goes to retirement. So, and now that we're training all of these formerly EMS only people to be firefighters, they go into police and fire, which is a much higher rate. So it's about 10% increase. So that's why our PERS pension has gone up. So I think it's the right thing to do. Absolutely, they're doing. They should be in fire and police classification. It's just more expensive. The new one here, paid leave Oregon. I don't know if you've heard about paid leave Oregon, but that's that. So instead of taking FMLA leave unpaid, now Oregon, in all their wisdom, say no, you can get paid for that, and that's fine. They started collecting money in January to pay for this program, which goes live September. Agencies have the option, you can go with a private insurer or you can self-insure. We've chosen to go with a private insurer. We don't have to start paying into that program until September when it goes live. So that's why, and it's a total cost of 1% of an employee's wages. The employee pays 0.6%, the district pays 0.4% to make up that 1%. That's certainly not 1% of our total salary, but it's only for 3 months. That's why it's so low. So here's our total personnel cost. Tim, I think you're looking at. So the 6.1 million, which in our total budget was at 9.9 million. So that's still pretty good percentage, 62% or so. I think I would start worrying if we're up to 70% of our income resources we're taking, so that's not bad.
Can I ask a question?
Of course,
Why was uniforms blank when there was?
we moved it.
Okay,
Sorry, that's a great question. So why are uniforms in benefits? I mean, that was, so, and as we brought these two budgets together, they weren't identical. So sometimes, uniforms could be in benefits, and other times it was in material service for the other agents. So you will see, several like that are blank. It just means they've been moved, and that's a great point, and I'll try and point those out.
and then the cell phone stipend, is that just because we have more full-time employees than previously?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So we require our personnel to, they use their phone, we have, an app they download and they're alerted for calls, callbacks. So we require them to use their phone to get this stuff. So with training, some differences, and I've got a training chief now, so, we're trying to get a little bit better control of our training costs. So last year, we spent 24,000 on sending 4 individuals to paramedics. That's abnormal for us to send that many people. We had the opportunity to do it. And it's a great return on investment for us to get paramedics out of it. Going forward, I think 1 a year we can justify that. It makes sense to do that. And we pay for tuition and expenses like that. So we also, CCP is critical care paramedic training. So we do a lot of our transports are not from a home to the hospital, but actually from Peace Park Hospital to Riverbend and OHSU in Portland. So to do that though, we have to have paramedics trained at a higher level, either flight paramedic or critical care paramedic, because they have to do use ventilators, they have to use IV pumps that are higher level than a normal paramedic. Very expensive training. That's where we get the 29,000. They're not offering that training anymore, but we need those people to be certified at that level. We found an option. It's an online class that they take, and then they do a task book with us. So we've changed from going, sending them out for a couple of weeks, living expenses and class expenses, and we're going to try and do it internally. It's critical that we have that level of training. That's about a quarter of our transport are these critical care or specialty care transports.
Chief, the next line down, Target Solutions, what's that?
That's our online training, so that includes EMS as well as fire and hazmat. So each month, they're assigned, our people are assigned 1 or 2 classes. And they have to go online and do it. It's tested, you have to take a test. And then that counts as part of your continuing education hours. So they can do classes in person as well, but this is just another avenue that they can do to get their training. So that's the name of the company, Target Solutions.
The Academy and Inky scholarships, is that something that it looks like we've previously done it?
When we have people that need it, so academy would be like a firefighter academy, we're bringing on new people. And we haven't been able to find people that want to become volunteer firefighters anymore. So we would, and then some of our outside agents like Mapleton and Swissmont, if they wanted to send people to these classes, we would pay for that as well. It's just getting harder and harder to find people to do that, but that's what that would be for. We're hopeful, so that's more that 5,000 more hoping than definite, but we would like to do that. And then total training of $80,000. The medical supplies really doesn't change much year to year. We did have And if you look across the bottom there, those, the 231, it's just adding things that were on the other page, that's why it's much more. So line 27, you can see year to year, about 110, 120,000. So medical supplies, we know we're gonna need, costs have been stable, well, costs are going down, but my people work very hard at, finding deals, keeping that down, so. And we don't have the COVID-19 supplies this year.
Really expensive.
Yeah. Now, reserve firefighters, that's what we call our volunteer reserves, and we have some minimal expenses. Each month, they have a dinner, and we pay for dinner, it's not, they're not, having somebody cater, it's usually they go and buy and cook dinner and cook it here, and they have their meetings. They're a separate entity from the fire department, they have their own officers, association officers, they have their own bylaws. But it's just a way for them to get together. I typically go to the meetings, it's a chance for me to talk to all the volunteers. And we're happy to support them.
Why don't they invite the directors?
I think we have in the past, you're always welcome, it's the last Tuesday of the month. We need to put that on your notification list. Excuse me. Haven't we, well, you don't go. Or do you?
As a bachelor, I'll take any free meal I can get.
What's that?
As a bachelor, I'll take any free meal I can.
Well, yeah, it's good food, so, yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're always welcome, so next, we'll make sure that you guys are notified. I know you want to know everything that's going on, that'd be a good one to do. Emergency service, that's a lot of our software image trend, that's what we do our reports in, it's reported to the state, so fire and medical. The firefighter response system, FRS, that used to be software that we used to notify everybody we had like a vehicle out of service or some event came up. We've got other avenues now to use to notify everybody, so we don't need that anymore. The public safety answering point, that's dispatch, we call West here, so they're located down at the police station. So they dispatch fire and EMS, of course, they dispatch for the police department, they dispatch for the tribe, they dispatch some Lane County personnel out here, and they help with state patrol, so they do a lot just other than the firehouse. And then the CPNS Everbridge is just another notification system that we use, the county, state's using now. And that helps us to notify all of our citizens that are emergency, but that would come through the fire department. Fire prevention and investigation. I don't have a fire marshal right now, but all of this has to continue. And there's nothing, it's a little bit more than we had last year, in that that's when my fire marshal left and made sure that we had a lot of supplies before he left. So thanks to Tony for doing that. But training as far as fire investigation training, fire inspection training, supply. When we go on a fire investigation, we have Tyvek suits and masks that we have to wear. Code Pals, Cybertech Code Pals is software that we use to keep track of all our addresses, what's going on at that address, if there've been permits, if there's been fire investigations, it's all in our database. NFPA, National Fire Protection Administration, they publish a series of standards, and there's several hundred, so if you want to know requirements of a firefighter, you go look at NFPA 1000. If you want to look at requirements for hazardous material responder, you go to NFPA guideline 472. So to go to that costs money, costs $1,700 a year.
Chief, question on that. Is this where you would put in funding for the newsletter? Is that anywhere in here?
That would not be fire.
I think for.
That's in admin, that'd be under admin.
Okay. Do we have anything on that?
I don't know if we have a specific line, it's being funded. So I'll have to check and see it, I think it's the next slide that shows that. costs. Then recruitment, we do that for recruiting volunteers as well as mainly this is for recruiting career people. We can advertise in NTN National Testing Network. They're an organization that handles all the, if you want to be a firefighter, you go to their website, you sign up, you take a test, you give them all your certificates, and then they have a list of people that are looking for firefighter jobs or paramedic jobs. And then you can get a list. These are people that are looking for jobs, they're qualified, and then you can send them an email and say, hey, apply here. And then all the cost of recruiting.
Chief, one more, that thing, is that area there, is that where we had the funding for a program at the high school? For recruitment? I know we've talked about that before, that we didn't have anybody to supervise that right now, but I'd like to keep bugging that, because I think it's a good resource for
It is
firefighters.
good. I think that would that be training? We have to talk about that.
But right now, we don't have anything specific for recruiting other than when we get in there and talk about occupations and like their A&P program. We're gonna try and work in with more, I mean, this is kind of going, sideways here, but we're gonna try and with our pulse point and all of our CPR training and stuff, we're gonna start working to try to get more people at high school level trained to do CPR. It's actually one of the new requirements, I think, this year, that before they graduate high school, they have to be trained. So we're gonna try and tie that in recruiting, we do the job fair and that kind of stuff. We dipped into fire marshal stuff, funding for buying, just like some of the cool little gadgets and gizmos to give out during the career fair, but otherwise, a lot of that stuff is better.
So the actual, and that was Rob Chansey, my training chief. That would, so if we sent instructors, that would be overtime, that would be charged to training. Materials could come out, like Rob said, could come out of public education supplies. But,
The only thing I'm saying is if it's an item on the budget, then it would be more emphasis to get it moving and getting something going. Because I know you got a lot on your plate and everything, this is kind of way in the background, but it's one of those things where.
yeah, it is in there. It's just, it's in with other things as well. So it would be, like going to the job fairs, setting up a class. So we would pay for all that through training, essentially, and then supplies would come through here.
I'm guessing the training would be more like where you find the volunteer firefighter recruitment as opposed to the recruitment.
Exactly. So yeah, what he's talking about is let's get them at the high school levels, show them this is a great career opportunity or potentially a good career.
Yeah, they could be a volunteer fireman at 18, that's seniors in high school, the next generation.
Yeah, it'd be a great spot to get your volunteer firefighters for sure. And
So we went to a career fair last month. And we had ride-along forms and had many students submitting those forms. So we're gonna get a foot in the door at least with
You got
them.
any response from that?
Yeah, we had, how many did you hear how many?
So I believe we got 1 or 2 applications for volunteer, but we brought 30 applications for ride-alongs and they were gone very, very quickly. And that was mostly because I don't think a lot of them are 18 years old. We no longer have our, like the Explorer type program where they can come in for 18 and kind of learn. And that's what we looked at. We just haven't had the numbers of children that yet. Hopefully moving forward, we're trying to get back in this, definitely.
Remember, you can't catch any fish if you don't go fishing.
Oh, yeah, we're fishing. I'm swimming.
But yeah, now that we have a training chief,
Trying to get,
so he's my fishing pole. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, he lets me have the free every now and then.
And then the Safer grant, was just several years ago, just the very beginning or very end of that year, that was a grant from the government that we used to hire some firefighters, but it expired 3 years ago. But we have to carry it for 3 years. Okay. And then this is materials and services. So again, this is paying for utilities, electricity, fuel costs, station building maintenance. fuel, which we think is gonna be stable around 250,000, which is good. Personal protection equipment, that would be like our SCBA, bumper gear that we wear. And I don't think there's anything else that looks, and then here's uniforms. Yeah. So we took it from benefits and we put it into materials and services where it should be. So total materials and services, we have another, yeah, we've got a couple more slides. So this is, Sam, I was talking about, this is includes just about everything. So community outreach, that line 4 is $4,000 as well as going into, our fire prevention supply. So that would be where newsletters and things like that would come out. We're just about ready to launch our new website, so I think that would tie in then to a newsletter. I've got it highlighted here. I do. One big change, I think everything else is pretty much the same as before, as business consulting. So the big jump there is that we just did a workshop with boards to look at our station locations. Do we need, so we have 8 fire stations and an ambulance station. The question is, do we need 9 stations? Do we need 5 stations? Do we need 15 stations? That's something that we have to sit down. And what you do is you look at where are your calls happening? What's your call distribution? What times are your calls? Do you have, should we have an ambulance at our station 4, which is on Sutton Lake Road, or is it just great to have one down by the hospital? So you hire somebody, they come in, they do all the statistical analysis, and they help us out. We provide them data, they put it into a report, as well as this station now, which we use as our primary fire response. It was not built to house career people. We've got 3 bedrooms that were used for, we used to have a resident program. So we had college age kids that would come here and they would live here and they would just respond when they're out of school, like that. So right now, if you look behind this wall, there's 4 or 5 beds, Murphy beds. So we don't have enough bedrooms for all of the firefighters. So we would like to remodel this station, possibly up here. I love this room. I don't want to get rid of it, but maybe downstairs where the admin staff is now, turn that into bedrooms. And then this lot across the street that's empty, that belongs to us as well. Could we put an admin building? And that's where a consultant architectural firm could say, well, this is what it could look like, this is what it could do. Most importantly, this is how much it would cost. So we're anticipating that that'll be around $70,000. So we're hoping. So total materials and services, the 1.586, which is real similar to last year. And it's gone up a little bit, but, you know, all our costs are going up.
What's peer support?
Peer support is, so that's a program that, again, we've moved things around, but that's, so that would be, a crisis intervention at, so we have some people that are trained in counseling. And that would be, so an opportunity, if we had a tough call. So we would sit people down, talk to them, set here, not one-on-one, but I mean, you'd have maybe one person sort of facilitate a conversation. We found the best way to handle tough calls to talk about it. The worst thing you can do is have a tough call, bad accident, bad fire, children involved, and then just send people home and expect them to deal with it. So this would be to have people, it's not that we're not funding it, we're funding it differently.
Okay.
Now, we've got our Western Lake Crisis Response Team, which is we're trying to get them to fill that out here. It used to be called MCR, now it's Western Lake Crisis Response. But they are trained to do a lot of this. And that cost, that 5,400, we actually brought in a lady a couple years ago to, it was supposed to be, are you dealing with stress? Right? But it didn't turn out to be what we actually thought it was going to be. but we had to pay her, of course, anyway, to do that.
Okay.
But,
Really become a pretty, yeah, pretty big problem in this profession. And Camille, Griswold and I have been working on trying to get more, you know, we went to the leadership conference and that was probably, I'd say the biggest theme during that was, you know, responder mental health and suicide prevention and because of, you know, what we do. So yeah, thank God there's a lot of training that they're just offering for free, but Camille's doing an awesome job. And you know, we have a two-day suicide class coming up here, I think in June, that kind of people will sign up for. There's a lot of peer support stuff, and, you know, the union offers it, a lot of training associations offer it, so I mean, it's out there, it's a big problem, and we're trying to stay ahead of it, I think we have, and unfortunately, it's because we've already lost 2 to PTSD. And I think our first case was the first in Oregon.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, so.
I was just wondering, I noticed there wasn't a budget item for it anymore, so I was just wondering what.
just in that, yeah. Actually, we're trying to do it through Western Lake Crisis Response. Yeah, if anybody needs any help, there's, yeah, we'll find resources for that. That's a good catch. Okay, so total personnel services, 6.1 million, material service 1.5. And then unending fund balance, so I told you we had a net working capital to cover for that 5 months. That's what this ending fund balance is gonna do for the following year. So Western Lake Ambulance District and South Valley Fire and Rescue don't need an ending fund balance anymore. They have no employees, they have no cost for those 5 months, but will feel well. So now that's why this ending fund balance will become the net working capital for the next year. So total requirements of 9.9. You see it's a big jump from previous year, so 6.9 million last year, we're going to 9.9. Well, you got to subtract that ending fund balance, so really it's 7.6 million, which we added a couple of people, which is that difference, and this is adding everything together. So this is Western Lake Crisis Response, or WLCR, ECO and MCR. This is a program that's 100%, well, 99% paid by the county. So, well, I just wanted you, budget committee to look at the budget. It's pretty much, I mean, it's all Lane County, although they pay us some money for that. But I wanted you guys to be able to look at it and comment if you had any comments. Great program. Our only issue is that we never know if it's gonna be funded. It's like on a 6-month basis.
They're a really good team.
How many employees do you have?
We have 3 full-time employees, Camille, Melissa, and then we just lost one, so we'll have 3. And then responders, what was it, about 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 10 part-time responders. So they do an awesome job. Yeah. So now we're talking about capital outlay. So now I'm jumping back to just South Valley Fire and Rescue. So, total capital outlay, 670,000, that, covers our pagers on line 2, furniture, and I try and keep a little bit in there. If you saw some of the chairs these guys are sitting on, you say, how do they do that? But, so we try and replace furniture as we can. So command vehicles, not that we got 2 command vehicles. We had it in last year's budget, it just hasn't come in yet. So we don't anticipate it's gonna come in this fiscal year. So that's money that we're not spending, but it's been ordered, we know it's coming in soon, we hope. So we just had to budget it for next year. Type 6 engine on line 14, so we classify our engines by type. Largest engines are type 1, smaller ones are type 6. So this would be like, you may hear calls a brush truck or a wildland truck. And we need 2 of those to help our forested area. So this was the first one we wanted to buy. The 180,000 for this current year, they're building it, they wanted half, so we paid them $90,000. So next year, when it comes in, we'll pay the rest of that. So that's why it's 100,000 for next year. Like I said, we need two. We just notified by the state that they're gonna give us a brand new one. So we'll see that savings in a couple years from now when we have budgeted for that second Type 6 engine. Type 3 engine, so it's mid-range engine, $450,000. It's been ordered, it's being made. There's a 18-month to 24-month lead time with getting a fire engine now. So you really have to anticipate you're gonna need it. And then, just personal safety and computer equipment, $670,000. We're paying for that out of the general fund, so we have capital funds, and I'll show you that, but we don't have to dip into that. So we had the opportunity, so this is a reserve for future expenditures. That the state said that if you give them money to put into the retirement system, they would give you a 25% bonus on that money right away. So we put money aside to do that. It was very limited. It was just a small window. They only had so much money, and this is money that's coming from sports betting in the state. So that revenue is supposed to go to support this additional funding of what they call side accounts. So the PERS system is so underfunded. It's financially shaky, how long it can survive. So they're looking for additional funding, and they make these side accounts. We put money in there, our rate comes down. But we cannot get that money back. It goes to PERS. It's there, held on our account, but it's gone. So we had to put money aside to put into this program, and we did put, I think SVFR put in 400,000 2 years ago, and Western Lane Ambulance put in 250,000, I think, but it was a limited program, limited amount of money. They had more people asking to be in the program than they had money available. So we still have this 150,000 that we weren't able to give to the state to buy down our rate essentially. So it's reserved there for future expenditures. They say they may come back with that program, as I don't know how well sports betting is doing in Oregon, but maybe there's funding there that they can. So we're not recommending to move that money. We don't need to move it. If PERS does offer this unfunded actuarial liability, the UAL program again, then we have some money to put to that. And then operating contingency above that, that is just if something comes up that we didn't budget for. We have money to do that. And our unappropriated ending fund balance goes from 1.2 million to 150,000. Again, we don't have to carry much money over to support employees because they have no employees. But we did want to keep some money in bank accounts that we can keep them over. And these are bank accounts that that's invested with the state. What is it, LGIP or it's a higher interest accounts with the state. So our total requirements, $4,860,034. If you remember from the first page, that was our resource, how much money that we expect to receive next year. So we have two capital funds, the capital replacement fund and the capital improvement fund. We're not taking any money out of that, either fund this year. So we have almost 500,000, again, reserved for future expenditures. And this would be for vehicle replacement, typically. I like to keep 500,000 in there. You saw an engine cost about 450,000. So if we had to, we have the money here if we had an emergency replacement. Capital improvement fund would be for like buildings.
Excuse me, chief. That's not correct.
What's not?
A type 1 engine is gonna cost more than 499.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking type 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe we should make that note that is for a type 3 engine and not a.
Well, And this is assuming that we have to pay cash, and we probably wouldn't have to do that if we wanted to finance it or anything like that. This could be for a type 6 engine, it could be for it, but you're right. Yeah, an aerial 1.5, yeah.
The outrageous, thank you.
But we have an additional almost 500,000 in our capital improvement funds. So the board can direct those funds where they want to. So I think if we had to, we could do that. So again, this would be for major expenses, like we're right now, you might notice we have new signs up, West Lane Fire and Authority. We did that now because we had to replace the siding, there was dry rot underneath that, so it was a good time to change the name, so. We didn't need to take money out of this fund, but we could have for that. Okay, that is the budget, the entire budget. So we are open to, if you would like to make changes, like to discuss it. If there's anything that maybe you need clarification for, that would be awesome, do that. Right now, there haven't been any changes that you made, that's what I mean by summary of changes, we would make sure that we captured all that. And you may be happy with the budget, I think it's a great budget. And then, we can move on to approve it, or you can move on to approve it. But it's entirely up to you, budget committee. So any discussion, first of all,
I think it was, yeah, I know, we didn't build it, that's.
We didn't, they didn't,
What's that?
they didn't double your salary. They didn't do
Yes.
that.
you can still do that, I mean, that's. No, that's okay.
They did a really good job.
Yeah, so if no discussion for change, there are no changes, right, Dina?
Correct.
I woke her up.
The only
Yeah.
change I would like to see would be an addendum to this, would be for the rolling stock. That we march out. Whether it's the 15 to 20-year, 15-year frontline service for the Type 1 engines, 5-year reserve, just carry it out. So it would be an addendum.
That's our capital plan, yeah.
Yeah, just so that we know where the rolling stock is.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you that, yeah.
I
we've got
think it'd
that.
be clear, it would be more transparent so that, and you would include the transport ambulance.
Yeah, and that's a good or a good point, Jim. I mean, I've done that in the past. I don't know why I didn't do it this year.
I remember seeing it last year.
Yeah, the
It was
capital
actually-
I kind of did too, but I wasn't sure if it was last year or the year before.
Pretty sure.
Maybe it was last year.
I think it was last year. I really do like the.
So that, yeah, so I've got to extend it out
And
now.
it shouldn't hold us back from reviewing and approving this tonight. I would just like to see that we get an addendum.
Yeah, I think this is what you're asking for, and yeah, I go off, I go off the NFPA guidelines, and again, if this says that an engine lasts 10 years and then it's 5 years in reserve. If our engine is in great shape in 10 years, we'll continue using it, but this is just, yeah.
It is nice to see the current inventory and where the expected failure is and all of that.
And you
fun
can't-
stuff, but-
And this is the one that surprised us. It shouldn't have, but it did. We have to, I know you can't see it, but it's SDBA replacement.
Right. Are we
And
applying for a grant on that? The FEMA?
they got one last time,
So we're out. We don't get it.
yeah, unless it changes. Yeah, my truck are regional, I mean, they look at that better, but we have to replace our self-contained breathing apparatus about every 10
Has
years.
the committee been formed on that? As to
Not
what they
yet,
want to do?
we're probably do that next fiscal year, because it's fiscal year 25. We're thinking we're gonna do that. The technology changes so much that you can't just, and it's the bottles that go out of service of their life, their service life. But then the technology changes, so it doesn't make any, you can't just get new bottles. But that's,
Oh,
oh, you're supposed to see that.
that-
So, if there's no further discussion, no changes, great questions. I appreciate all those questions. And we just need a motion to propose, to approve the proposed budget.
From them.
Right now, wait a minute, you're all budget committee.
I thought they have to see that.
You are all equals here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed SVFR budget
In the amount of,
in the amount of $4,860,034.
Aaron made that motion, Dina,
Lacy second.
Jim Polisi seconded the motion. Did you get that?
I got it.
Awesome. So all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So now we also have to approve the permanent tax rate. So this is what you see on your property tax. So, the budget committee has the right to say $1.5417 is too much. You can lower it. You can't go higher on this case. My salary, you could have gone higher, but you can't go higher. You can't go higher on the rate. So this is maximum rate. We are happy with this. So we need a motion to approve that tax
I'll
rate.
make the motion that we approve the permanent tax rate at $1.5417 per 1,000 assessed value.
Right,
Did
so
I say that correctly?
1.5417.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1.
Okay. So Jim Polisi made the motion, Stephanie, seconded. Did you get that?
I got it.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now you can say thanks. Thank you very much. It really, yeah. I can't express how thankful we are to have citizens, and I know you guys have been here for a couple of years, so hopefully you'll continue.
Well, thank you for all you guys do.
Oh,
I feel like I got the easy job.
Well, the budget committee, do they get to watch us continuously through as they were the ones that guided this?
I mean, come to a board meeting?
Yeah,
No,
and just to, keep, because they're the ones that work on this, right?
they're always welcome to our board meetings. Very exciting.
We get to go to those fancy dinners once a month too.
Yeah,
You go to the-
absolutely. That would be good.
That's fair.
So thank you again. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know it's tough to get out in this kind of weather.
So I want to live in Seattle.
I appreciate that you're thanking us